The humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip is a real unprecedented catastrophe, and it is not for less, because indiscriminate bombings in a territory of 360 square kilometers, where 2 million people live, result in 10,000 deaths in 4 weeks and more than 50% of the infrastructure destroyed. That is, we are facing a truly alarming cold crisis. And although the most natural thing is for all these surviving Palestinians to go to neighboring Egypt, an Arabian and Muslim country, the truth is that the Cairo government has already declared that it will not adapt to refugees. It has opened the border only for certain injured after weeks of negotiations, and is expanding the separation wall on the border with Gaza. Likewise, the other Arabian and Muslim neighbors talk a lot about the ceasefire, but nothing about receiving refugees. The question many people ask is why? Has the brotherhood among the people died? Has the Arabian people died? Want to know the reasons? Alright, then stay until the end of the video. Before anything else, I'd like to invite you to my new English channel, Map History, featuring English translations of Sebastian's map videos. Ideal chance to enhance your English and understand history. A 3M product that will be highly beneficial, unlocking numerous opportunities. The link will be in the description and first comment. To begin with, it's important that we take into consideration that this situation is not new at all. And in the past, there have been massive waves of Palestine refugees who were indeed received in neighboring countries. And for this, we have to go back to 1948, when the ceasefire of the First Arabian-Israeli War took place. This modified the boundaries of the UN partition plan for Palestine into 2 states, and awarded Israel the conquered territories that coincide with the borders of the current country, while the Arabians were limited to the formed areas of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Within the conquered territories, an expulsion and flight of 700,000 Palestinians took place, known as the Nakba. At first, these refugees were well received in Lebanon, Egypt, Syrian Arab Republic state of Kuwait, and Jordan, and in this country, they even obtained Jordanian nationality. In addition, Amman controlled the West Bank and East Jerusalem, where in 1964 the Palestinians formed the Palestine Liberation Organization, which would be the representative entity of the Palestine people. 3 years later, in the Six-Day War, Israel achieves another victory in which it annexes the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, generating a new flow of Palestine refugees who became radicalized, also feeling once again dispossessed of their lands. Thus, the Palestine Liberation Organization grew in Jordan to the point of gaining political influence in the country, forming its own army on Jordanian soil and demanding the abdication of the reigning Hashemite monarchy. Thus, in 1970, the Jordanian Civil War breaks out, nicknamed Black September, a low-intensity conflict where the Palestine Liberation Organization fails to achieve its goal of overthrowing the then King Hussein IV, who had the support of Israel and the United States. The Palestine Liberation Organization is then expelled from Jordan and later received in the Afghan National Police. Likewise, Black September emerges, a terrorist organization that committed attacks, such as the murder of 11 Israeli athletes at the 1972 Munich Games, and the massacre of Jordanian Prime Minister Wasfi el-Tel. Post-Civil War Jordan faces economic collapse. In Lebanon, the Palestine Liberation Organization establishes itself, a country that took in 110,000 Palestine refugees in the 1948 war. By 1975, the refugees, some also coming from Jordan, had already reached 300,000 and were concentrated in southern Lebanon. Many of them were seduced by the ideas of the Palestine Liberation Organization and joined this group, which also gained political influence in Lebanon. Thus, being close to the border with Israel, the Palestine Liberation Organization launched a series of incursions from the northern border. The Jewish state responds with Operation Litani, in which it strikes back against the Palestine Liberation Organization, who has to retreat into the interior of the country. It is here that it allies with Haman, a Marxist-Leninist guerrilla group, seeking to overthrow the Christian Maronite Lebanon government. It is there on the border with Israel, and on the border with Israel, the Jewish state. Thus, the Lebanon Civil War begins. which lasts for 15 years, leaving a completely devastated country. While peace is achieved through a reform of parliamentary representation, the Palestine Liberation Organization is once again expelled, and this time transferred to Tunisia. As for Lebanon, it never really recovered from such a bloody war, and the only paramilitary group that maintained its existence was the well-known Hezbollah, current ally of Hamas and Islamic Republic of Iran. Finally, we have the case of State of Kuwait, another country that, despite its small size, received a large number of Palestine refugees, who, along with their descendants, reached 32,000 by 1990, which represented almost 18% of the country's total population. It turns out that the Palestine Liberation Organization supported Saddam Hussein during the invasion and annexation of State of Kuwait, as well as during the subsequent Gulf War led by the United States. This support increased when Iraq launched missile attacks towards Israel, so after the victory and the recovery of independence, the restored government of State of Kuwait undertook the expulsion of almost all of the 300,000 Palestinians living in the country, an unprecedented act. At this point, it's time to talk about the country that is the protagonist of this video, Egypt, which was the first Arabian country to recognize Israel as a sovereign state during the Camp David Accords in exchange for the return of Sinai annexed by the Jewish state during the Six-Day War. In other words, Egypt implicitly became an ally of Israel. In case you don't know, Sinai is this peninsula bordering Gaza and Israel with a complicated topography over which Egypt doesn't have much control, which is reflected in the fact that if you zoom in on Google Maps, you won't find the description of the description of the description. Egypt lacks additional roads and settlements. For this reason, it has served as a base for various Islamist groups operating in the region, such as the Islamic State itself. Knowing the historical radicalization of a people expelled from their territory like the Palestinians, it wouldn't be far-fetched to think that history could repeat itself. Likewise, we must take into consideration certain political causes, and for this, we must mention the Muslim Brothers. This is an Islamist organization labeled as terrorist by the Egyptian government, and was founded in 1928 in the country. The Muslim Brothers even participated in the country's political life, and even the president who came to power between 2012 and 2013 was affiliated with this organization. After its overthrow, Muslim Brothers was outlawed, and it turns out it was never founded in 1987. So there is no doubt that receiving a massive immigration of Gazans could strengthen the Muslim Brothers. So as you can see, today's Palestine refugees are at a critical moment, not only because of their precarious humanitarian situation, but they have nowhere to go. A sad story, especially for those Palestinians who seek nothing more than a dignified life away from violence, something they will hardly achieve, and if the war continues to escalate, their hopes will be even less. What other reason do you think influences the rejection of Arabian countries to host Palestine refugees? Don't forget to leave your comment and subscribe to the channel. Also, I leave in the description my social networks, and in case you want to see the new videos in pre-release and have a greater interaction with me, your donations on Patreon, unamanito.net, or channel members are welcome.
Until next time!